Welcome folks, I'm Lee Brunellen, the founder of the Natural Health Clinic, and today we're going to be talking about facial analysis. So face it, your cheeks are telling all your secrets. There's going to be about 17, 18 of different signs to look for when you're looking at your own face. And that actually is how I want to begin, is just with a cautionary note. And that is, don't take the information that I'm giving you today and start analyzing the faces of all your friends and your kids and your parents and especially your spouse if you want to continue having any type of relationship with them. Because you can tell them, hey, you have this and that means that and you should do this. And of course, as you well know, everyone loves that, right? So don't do that. Just use this information for your own benefit. And I think we're going to have some fun today. So let's get started. First of all, not quite the face, but pretty close to that, and that is balding right on top of the head. Male pattern balding, it's oftentimes called, and what actually creates this is a male hormone, and it's called DHT. The acronym is DHT. It means dihydrotestosterone. It is a very, very powerful form of testosterone. It is about 100 times stronger than the standard testosterone that you think of. So elevated levels of DHT is a common cause for this male pattern balding, and also it can be a cause of prostate cancers as well, just as a side note. Now, have you ever seen individuals who have the last third of their eyebrow just missing? It's like that they, shaved it off, or it's just completely missing that last third of the eyebrow. Well, that is actually significant, and what it's a sign of is symptoms of usually hypothyroidism. It's always a thyroid, but it's usually a hypothyroid situation. What about those bloodshot eyes? You ever looked in the mirror, notice your eyes are bloodshot? Well, let me ask you a question, and it can just be between you and I. Was it after a night of drinking? Or an evening of drinking, or a morning of drinking? So what bloodshot eyes typically mean? No, it doesn't mean that the person's hungover, but it is indicative that something is going on within the liver. Now also, the inside of your eye, if it's very red, it should be pink typically, but if it's very, very red, that's actually a sign of elevated blood sugar, or at least blood sugar dysregulation of some type. And what about those individuals, hopefully not yourself, that have those very dark circles underneath their eyes? Well, that is a sign of something called insulin resistance. Now, it doesn't mean that they're diabetic, but if they continue, that they perhaps could go into full-blown diabetes, but it is definitely a sign of insulin resistance. So if you have that dark circles underneath your eyes, and the best thing that you can do is start to going on a very good diet made of animal proteins and vegetables, get out all those processed grains and all the sugars and even the fruit. We're going to be talking about in a moment a sign on your face that can be indicative of consuming too much fruit. So stay tuned for that. Now, what about bags underneath the eyes? Not necessarily dark circles, but just like a puffiness underneath the eyes, those bags underneath the eyes. Well, similar to the dark circles, and you'll actually see that there is patterns throughout many of these different things. Similar to that, it is a sign of blood sugar and or kidney dysregulation. Now, what about individuals with really oily skin? That is a sign of elevated androgens, which are male hormones. And if the oily skin person is female and they have these high androgen hormones, that can be indicative that they may potentially have PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome. Cataracts. Now, many people just think of that as something that occurs as you're aging, but in reality, once again, and I told you you're going to have a very common theme throughout many of these things in the face, it's a sign of high blood sugar because it's creating oxidation within the lens of the eye. And also it can be a sign of a vitamin A deficiency. Red cheeks. Could be they're embarrassed, could be they're blushing, could be they have foundation, but it can also be that they have high cortisol levels. Typically, these are chronically stressed individuals. Perhaps they've been diagnosed with rosacea. They may be given antibiotics to treat these red cheeks. Interestingly enough, it clears it up, so it does show that there could be an underlying microbial type of situation going on as well. Of course, if they're having high levels of cortisol, that can also be induced through high amounts of carbohydrates, refined grains, and sugars. And of course, that is conducive to those microbes flourishing, thriving, and being around far more than you'd like. Now, instead of the red cheeks, you can have another issue going on, and that can be brown pigmentation or brown splotches within the face or cheeks. And that is a sign of high estrogen levels. And it does not matter if it's men or women, if you have these brown splotchy places within the face, within the cheeks, so forth, that is indicative of high estrogen levels. Now that could be because of using a lot of plastics or being around a lot of plastics. It could be different facial creams a person's using because they contain many different estrogens typically. And of course, the most common reason is because the person over many decades has been consuming a bad diet. And typically those bad diets cater towards a higher estrogen type of hormonal pattern. And what about scaliness or peeling around the nose, maybe between the eyebrows, on the forehead? That is a fatty acid ratio that is completely dysfunctional. So what it indicates is that your omega-3s are too low, your omega-6s are too high, and what you need to do in order to correct that situation is start consuming those omega-3s and stop consuming so many omega-6s. Now, where do you get these omega-6 fatty acids? From vegetable oils. Typically everything that you've been told that's wonderful and healthy, from canola oil, God forbid, corn oil, soybean oil, peanut oils, they're pretty much all omega-6s. So you want to start lowering the amount of omega-6s you're getting into your diet, increase the amount of omega-3s, fish, etc. What about blackheads? Blackheads are a fairly easy fix, and what it's indicative of is that you're having low sunlight exposure. So I recommend getting out in the sun and correcting that situation, but you could also help it by taking cholecalciferol or vitamin D3. Cracked corners of the mouth. That is a B2, a vitamin B2 deficiency. Again, the theme, as you should be seeing by now, is a person is consuming too many carbohydrates, refined sugars, grains, etc. Cold sores. Some people call these stress spots and stress sores, and it may be a good name for it. What it actually is a virus, herpes simplex 1 to be specific, and these will show up when an individual has been under stress. And in fact, there are many viruses that a person has gotten, the immune system has dealt with them, and these stay quarantined or latent in effect until the person becomes compromised enough, typically through a lot of stress, and then they, excuse me, excuse me, and then they see these viruses come to the forefront. So that can happen with cold sores, it can happen with shingles, and it can also happen with autoimmune diseases. I see that pretty frequently working with clients in practice. Facial hair. Well, it's common with men. So we're speaking to women as far as maybe facial hair, facial hair growth. That, again, very similar to the other things that we've mentioned as far as the oily skin, is a sign of high androgen levels. And androgens, just think of them as being like male hormones. High androgen levels within females, usually due to insulin resistance, which is caused through a bad diet, the standard American diet. Acne. Again, acne can usually be helped when you correct your diet, removing those things that cause insulin resistance. High insulin levels is typically a reason for acne. There can be other things. The skin can actually be reacting to facial products, cosmetics as an example. That is also possible. But very frequently, you have to start with the diet, lower those high insulin levels, and you'll see a substantial improvement overall in acne. And finally, have you ever noticed people who have this kind of round face? It's not that they're actual skeletal structure is rounder, but it's like there's this puffiness. Fatty cheeks are basically a puffiness to the face. Have you noticed that before? Well, what that is, remember I told you we were going to get into it a little bit earlier, that is from a high fruit diet or overconsumption of alcohol. For that person, it doesn't mean that they're an alcoholic per se, it just means that they are consuming potentially too much alcohol for their physiology, or they're consuming higher levels of fruit, or it can actually be both. They need to lower both in order to help themselves. So there you go. You have about 17, 18 different indications to analyze face and see where your physiology may be at and what's going on and what you can do to correct it. Again, cautionary note, don't use this to tell other people what they need to be doing or what's happening within their body. Usually won't be appreciated unless they're coming to you and asking for that advice. I'm Leigh Brunellen, the founder of the Natural Health Clinic. I very much appreciate your viewing this video, and if you have found this information helpful, then you can do me a huge favor, and that is to like, comment, share this video to your friends and family, and that is really the only way that they're going to be able to get this kind of information because of the way the algorithms work in the facial media, on the social media. Maybe it should be facial media. On the social media, they really are not wanting individuals to get the more natural side of things that could truly benefit them pretty much for free. They want you to just get this allopathic World Health Organization, CDC level of disinformation, whatever you want to call it. So really appreciate those likes, those comments, and those shares. And if you're looking to optimize your health, then that's what our clinic is all about. We will be happy to go through an initial consultation with you to see if our total health restoration program, completely customized to your physiology, can actually take you step by step and help you to reach your health optimization goals. So if that would be something that you may find helpful, I invite you to contact our office and see if that may be of benefit to you. Thanks again.